our next speaker on stage. I would encourage you all to please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask our speakers questions and they'll be more than happy to answer. Now, our next speaker will be speaking on a very interesting topic, which is disrupting criminal underground operations via dark web intelligence. Now that's intriguing. Please put your hands together for the Managing Director, MENA of Resecurity, Mr. Ahmad Halabi. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello all. Thank you for attending my talk. So, intelligence operations in eliminating threats, or what we call uncovering criminal operations. Before I start, I'm gonna talk a little bit about me. So, I'm actually a former hacker, a cybersecurity specialist who was ranked the top hacker in the world by the US Department of Defense back in 2019 and got acknowledged by over 200 private, public, and big sectors like Apple, Google, Microsoft for fighting vulnerabilities. And I'm also was ranked the top hacker in the world by IBM back in 2020 and in UAE in 2022. So I'm also the managing director of Resecurity. So when we talk about vulnerabilities, threats, right, we actually talk about anything that is targeting you in a direct or indirect way, trying to access your infrastructure, identifying weaknesses in your perimeter, and obtaining some access inside your assets, right? So there are a lot of vulnerabilities, a lot of types of threats, but there is only one key thing, which is they're gonna, do something bad against your assets, right? So from application vulnerabilities, smart city hacking, to fraud, denial of services, cyber terrorism, phishing, malwares, botnets, network intrusions, and more as well. So how we mitigate these threats, right? What we do is we do focus on a new concept that we call it identifying threat risks. So we focus on threat risk score. By that, two main things: whether you've been targeted or whether you have a material breach. So by identifying when exactly you've been targeted and identifying what type of material breach you have, you can actually try to fix better than just addressing without knowing how things happened. And how we do this is simply because we do monitor people. So instead, while everybody is trying to identify the root source of technologies, trying to reverse engineer malwares, tracking technology, what we do is we do step beyond that. What we do is simply we monitor threat actors that are developing these malwares, that are doing these attacks. So by monitoring threat actors, you actually are a step closer to identify what we call an actual piece of intelligence. And that can scale your subsidiary, cover your business, and reduce the false positive, and at the same time reduce the noise and make it easy for you to integrate it with everything. And something you need to know about us: we don't buy data. We don't have commodity data, and we don't just gather it like this. How we do it is, or before we say how we do it, let me explain the data layers, right? So everybody talks about dark web, but rarely people know what dark web really is. And for us, this is the understanding of the dark web layers. So while a lot of people, a lot of vendors collecting the TTPs, IOCs, and the known, let's say, artifacts, what we do focus is not only dark web, which is the fourth layer here, but also we do two steps beyond that. So there is difference between dark web data collection, like scraping, or ingesting your assets inside the criminal environment where you do HUMINT, where we call a human intelligence operation. And this is what we do in the two layers top. from embedding our assets inside the vetted forums, as well as obtaining peer-to-peer communication. So we may obtain personal communication with the threat actors because we know that, it's not only about cyber. So threats is not just a cyber threat, but it can be a physical threat. And sometimes that's why you cannot join a forum unless you have a certain asset physically implemented somewhere, because these threat actors are not just easy to develop relation with. So this is how we do it. And well, we do have a lot of blogs and, let's say, advisories and research where we obtained 0 days, identified and disrupted the criminal operations on the dark web, and much more. This is how we actually work. So if we were saying how we identify the threat risk, is simply because we do these pillars. So all of our company members fall under these pillars where we do the offensive operation. And what I do mean by offensive operation is simply we develop chain of assets, we obtain upstream access, and we do offensive operation in a way that we actively collect data. And as I said before, there is a huge difference between passively collecting data from scraping or actively engaging with the threat actors. And I will explain all what does this mean, right? Because, well, I'm gonna show you some real screenshots, proofs that, that shows you what do I mean by that. And everybody tried to collect passive data, ground operation level from, forensics, intelligence gathering, and collecting signatures. And everybody can do the cyber part from malware analysis, reverse engineering, and so on. But specifically, the offensive operation is not easy to be done by anybody, right? And this is just example from, so how we do it is simply because we do have a unit called Hunter Unit. Our human investigation intelligence unit that does the research and development, investigation, analysis, and monitoring. And we actually do obtain good amount of vulnerabilities and 0 days with big companies and enterprises and governments as well. So this is our portfolio overall. So if you look at us, it's kind of, we're more like data company. So we have a lot of products, a lot of services, but everything is about data. And this is how we actually mitigate threats, starting from our massive threat intel library that we call Context, where you have everything you need from every source. This is kind of your workbench to conduct forward hunting, investigation, analysis, and monitoring. And then we do have the risk that can protect every company and can simply answer 3 main questions. Are you being targeted? Who's targeting you? And whether you have a material breach. We do have a lot of other products, but so when we combine things together, we can actually go beyond just the cyber to fight against terrorism and also track money laundering activities. And this is how we protect banks and also governments. Now, starting to showing examples. So this is just a simple dark web monitoring by searching for a certain actor and trying to identify what he's leaking, what he's selling on the dark web, and also his relation. So we are known with identifying the attribution of the threat actors by mapping their acronyms and identify their server-side information from emails, IP addresses, and more. Because when we look here, this is actually the data that we collect by monitoring the threat actors and their forms. Right, so from the threat actor, we can identify their known aliases, their known profiles, their known connections, their saved messages, their known IOCs, TTPs, and then we can obtain their IP address. By that, we can simply map their geolocation. And we are very specialized in botnet intelligence. By botnet intelligence, I mean any compromised machine that is being injected or infected by malware and is running somehow, somewhere in any command and control server, or is logged somewhere in the internet or in the dark web. So we actually collect a lot of botnet infections, over 100 millions. And you will see here, so I'm I did this when I created the presentation, and back in 25 October is the date where I did the presentation. And the platform is very simple that we have, that within seconds you can pull out any infected machine, right? So we do have in Oman now 50,000 infected machine, and all these machines are compromised, and some of their data are being leaked or sold on the dark web. And you see from the host names, IP addresses, the address, and also the dates. Now, how we are different than any other vendor, or how we provide the unique intelligence key, right, is simply because we identify a precursor to a breach or event or incident before it happens. So that's why on the top of the screen, you're seeing two dates. You have the date and you have the import date, meaning that, and the import date is 1 day ahead, right? So it means that we identified when the machine was compromised back in 25 October, and then we identified that the data is leaked or sold back in 26 October. So the threat actor compromised the machine, or the initial access broker compromised the machine, then in 25th of October sold the initial access to the botnet operator where they installed the malware, and then after a day, after the threat actors categorized the data, exfiltrated them, separated them, and then they sold them. So we can go in depth on how the operation is being done on the dark web. Not only this, but we also captured the host name, and we provided as well anything that was logged or extracted from the victim machine. And we see that we have the account, login, SSID, and probably login to a Wi-Fi or something like that. We don't stop here, because what we provide you is the ability to investigate the incident. We're not gonna tell you that, oh, your email and password were leaked on the dark web. We're gonna tell you how it was leaked, who leaked it, and what to do in order to prevent it or fix the problem, right? So that's why we're providing you some information about the machine itself that was compromised. Because you need to know, is this a personal machine or an employee machine? You need to identify what else was leaked, because threat actors may not sell everything directly. What they will do is they will sell initial things, and then they will store the sensitive files for later to upsell later as well. So we can see that, for example, this is Windows 10 Enterprise, so now we know that it is a commercial machine or a machine related to a company, right? And we can see the hardware details if they're using antiviruses. And you know, it's simple as it sounds. Malwares can bypass antiviruses because they simply don't depend on signatures. And this is why we come in order to identify what was bypassed, right? And also applications running. So before that, if you see here, you see that we can identify even the applications that are running as well. Processes, if there are processes, and any file that was exfiltrated from the victim machine. So here we see, for example, that we got files that were exfiltrated from the victim machine, and it's not just a screenshot or a cookie from the browser, but also autofills, keyloggers, and even sensitive credentials like FTP or SSH. So you actually kind of obtain the whole remote access to the whole company from just one employee infection, right? So this is example of one of the autofills that we opened. So we can have the password, CAPTCHA, some information amount, maybe bank account, maybe IBAN, maybe later credit card as well. And this is how we monitor financial leakage from botnets as well. So this is example of a screenshot captured from a victim machine as well, because the threat actors usually capture a screenshot when they hit or when they infect the machine. And now I'm just showing that, well, it's not just about machine infection or dark web, normal dark web monitoring, but it's also about, I'm just gonna remember what I'm looking for here. Okay, so I'm just trying to see who's selling documents or illegal files like passports, IDs, and related to the country, right? So you can monitor any illegal transaction or illegal activity on the dark web targeting certain country, and you can go more in depth, right? So here, for example, selling citizenship in Oman. And you can track these threat actors as we were talking. For example, as I told you, it's not about cyber because what we can monitor is also more, from terrorism to illegal trafficking to money laundering to drug trafficking, human trafficking, weapons trading, and anything that is related to these sections, counterfeit documents and money and more. So for example, this is what I was trying to do is I was looking for cybercrime activities on the dark web in a place that is related to Oman, and this is the results that I can get. And we see that 60,000 results, right? And now going to the commercial a little bit, so how we can help you as a government or as a bank or as a financial sector or as a normal company as well is simply by creating a monitoring task that allow you to monitor anything interacting within your perimeter. So we do have a product that actually allows you to monitor your supply chain, third party, vendors, consumers, clients, employees, family members, because we all know that threats are not targeting you directly. Well, we're very smart or let's say threat actors or hackers are very smart not to targeting you directly because they know that you have firewall, you have EDR, you have all the protection mechanisms. So what they will try to do is simply they're gonna find weaknesses in your secondary assets or alternative assets that will allow them to pivot internally to your network or your parameter. And that's why we monitor the surrounding as well. So it's not only about the company itself, but it's about anything that is interacting within the company. And this is how we do it in such a structure. So you can simply answer as board member director or let's say executive level that, well, my third party is being targeted or my supply chain has a material breach and you can directly fix the problem. So I guess that's it. We still have one last slide. So this is the use cases that we can cover actually. You know, from identity protection, protecting every single citizen against his, let's say, name, email, password, social security number, financial details, against anything on the dark web. So, for example, you can put your name on our platform, and if someone talked bad about you on social media or, let's say, dark web, or on a device that is infected where you were mentioned in the logs, we can alert you about it. So it goes to identity protection as well. High wealthy individual, important people, let's say in the governments or CEO, CTO, executive level, we can do this protection, as well as other things like dark web monitoring, anti-piracy, digital risk, and intelligence overall, as well as fraud and risk, botnet data breaches, brand, and anti-fraud. So that's it. I'm open for questions later. Thank you.